Hey everyone, Ekman here with another video, and today is the start of the pre-releases for the 7th set of the One Piece card game, and honestly, I'm super excited for this set. I've been doing a lot of testing on my live streams, and I think there's a lot of just change of pace compared to what we've been looking for and seeing in OP06 and the EB01 set. So to kind of commemorate that, we are doing a tier list for this set, at least at the beginning of this meta, and I think it's going to change a little bit as we go in for the next couple weeks. But before we get started, first, if you guys are new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe. It helps me quite a lot, and also you won't miss out on all the other OP07 content we're making. I'm doing deck lists, we've got tournaments coming up as well, and I'm really looking forward to just seeing what OP07 looks like here for the English version of this card game. I also want to mention I've been doing a lot of live streams, including a mega testing session I did just the other day. I did remove the membership lock for it on YouTube, so you guys can watch it right now, and I do just want to do a big shout out to all my buddies who came out to do this. I'm moving from Arizona pretty quickly, so just to have like another just like big testing session meant a lot, and I really will miss Arizona, and the people came over too. So thank you guys for that as well. Make sure to check it out. There's a lot of good games for it, and let's jump on into this video. So a couple of things I do want to say too is that this format is a little bit different than what we get for other formats, at least day one. Traditionally, the set gets released in Asia first, and they kind of develop the meta, and when it comes out here in the English version, at least in the United States, we kind of know what the set looks like too. So the big difference is that halfway through their format, they did get the restriction list change, which meant Sakazuki, Rejection, and Great Eruption are all banned from this card game. So we get that at day one of this, so we do have that format going forward, but from my understanding and from what I've seen, the meta wasn't fully developed because it was on the second half of the OP07 meta, and they did not have as many events compared to the first half of that meta too. So I think there's a little bit more unexplored territory, some decks and builds that maybe haven't been tested to their limit, and there could be some surprises, which again, we don't get often in this card game. So maybe I'm optimistic. Maybe I've just been looking at the wrong resources for the Asian meta as well. But I do have some hopes that there are some unique decks that we haven't seen fully developed in this meta either. So I think that's really cool. So also just the change of pace of Sakazuki being banned, whether you liked him or not, the fact that we do have a meta without him means that there's a lot of new exciting room for us to test out some new things too. So we are going to go over our tiers real quick. Are highly competitive. So these are decks that I think are highly competitive. They should top most events in this format, if not win a good amount of them. There's competitive, where I would expect them to top, maybe not every event, but I wouldn't be too surprised if they did. I would be maybe a little bit surprised if they won an event, but not incredibly so. We have playable, which I think could top an event maybe once during this season. I would very much not think that they would win an event, but someone who's dedicated or who's on a really good run with the deck, I think could top with the deck, just not consistently. And then lastly, we have unlikely, where I don't think it's likely for this to top, let alone win a tournament. I could be wrong on it, but that's kind of where that is. It's just the bottomest tier before, we can call it trash as well. And there is also this kind of untested one with me moving, and with how like the EBO 1.5 format and everything else, I haven't been able to do as much testing as I would like and normally do for a lot of this, and the fact that it's been untested in the, fully, I feel like, in the Asian meta. So these are just some leaders that I've seen pop up in discussions, and I think they could be viable, but I don't have a strong enough opinion right now to say if they're good or bad. So these are ones that I've been focusing on. I really want to do a big old blue-yellow ace testing session. I just haven't had the time, and I feel like I have to go over some of the newer leaders first before I can jump back to some of the older ones. So these are the ones on my radar. I don't know where they belong outright. They could all just be playable or lower, but I do think there's some room for these to be in a good spot as well. So other than that, we have all 6 of our new leaders, and then also all the leaders that essentially topped or did somewhat well in the previous format or got some new support that's worth mentioning in this new one too. So So that's enough talking about that. Let's just jump on into it with our new leaders. And we've got kind of like a divide between the six. We have like three leaders that I think are understood as like very viable in this meta. And then there's three that are not so viable. I'll give you 2 seconds to visualize that in your mind of who belongs where. But we're going to start at the bottom. We've got Vegapunk as well as Foxy. We're going to put them in unlikely. Vegapunk, I've seen the leader says it can't attack, and I think one of these days Bandai's going to make a leader that's going to be viable despite having that restriction. But I don't think it's going to start with Vegapunk. I think he's neat. I think he's got some interesting mechanics, but in a game where most yellow leaders are viable, this is kind of one of the exceptions that this one's not so much in that way. So I don't think he's going to be doing much in this one. I could be wrong. There could be a build I'm not aware of, but I don't think he's going to be on that competitive scene. And then we also have Foxy in the same way. I don't think he's there for what it is. I could be wrong on that one, but I'm just not a super faith in what this leader can do in that one either. And then we have Dragon. I think Dragon of the bottom three, if you want to call him that, I think he has the most potential. He does have some strengths for this format, and some of the new Revolution Army stuff is really neat too. It's kind of an archetype that's been getting like incremental support for the last couple sets, so I think eventually we'll have a deck that's more viable. I don't know if it's him, I don't know if it's one of the Sabo leaders or something like that, but I think there will be eventually a really good like red Revolution Army, and I think Dragon could be there with like a little bit more support as well, but not immediately sold on this one, at least in the OP07 meta, but I think he is worth a mention. And then keep going up. I think we have Boa, which I'll put in competitive. I like Boa, and I'm going to just quickly do this. I think Boa and Don Quixote do Flamingo are pretty similar in a lot of ways. It just kind of comes down to play style for it. I personally like Doflamingo a little bit more than Boa, but I think both have their strengths and weaknesses in this meta too, so it comes down to a more personal and playstyle choice, but I think they are great for what this meta is, and they're in a pretty strong spot. And then there's also the Bonnie, which I'm going to put, I don't know where I would put this outright. It's in between, like on like a in between competitive and highly competitive. We'll talk about it, but I think it's like the 5th best deck in this format potentially. I don't think like me putting it here. It's either like at the top of competitive or the bottom of highly competitive, but I think there's some good builds for it. I think the deck is very obnoxious, and the biggest thing for this leader is that it's like the first generic green leader that we've had that's good since Eustace Kid, right? Which is the first wave of Star decks, right? Like the beginning of this game. It's been like a year and a half, and we haven't had a good generic green leader outside of Eustace Kid, right? We have Uta, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but Uta's more of a leader that happens to be green than a green leader, right? It has its own archetype, its own gimmick, and everything else, so it doesn't really participate as a green leader in the regards of like the staples and how the deck plays either. So I think Bonnie is obnoxious. It has a lot of good interactions, and if you don't play its game, you can kind of lose a lot of advantage as well. So I think the deck is good. Don't think I'm underselling. I might be underselling it a little bit, but I think you're going to definitely see a lot of them in this meta. And then I think the best leader that we get from this set is the Rob Lucci. We've seen the power creep with Black getting a lot of power with like Gecko Moria. We saw Rebecca beforehand as well. The deck just has a lot of good things to go with, like the 4-drop Rob Lucci, right? And this is like, this time last year, right, we had a OP03 come out just around this time, and we got a Rob Lucci leader. He was a favorite of mine, but he wasn't super good, and Black wasn't like really good in this game on release, right? Like it really kind of waited until like Sakazuki came out before it became super duper meta. Like the removal became good enough to keep up or even surpass meta expectations. So it's been a long year before the second Rob Lucci leaders come out, but since then there's just so many dang cards this can take advantage of. The Cypher Pool got a lot of new support. The fact that the 4-drop Rob Lucci's in archetype is fantastic for this deck, and Gecko Moria has some insane combos with what this deck can do as well. So I think it's in a good spot. It's one of my favorite decks to play right now, and I feel like it can potentially win any matchup outside of maybe Black Yellow Luffy at times, and just is very, very strong. So we're going to put it there at the top of highly competitive. So so those are just our new leaders from that one, and also I guess Dofi as well. But that's kind of where I'm feeling from it, and I think this is pretty understood from this point. Again, I think the only one that can maybe move up is Bonnie potentially, but I'm going to leave it there for right now. So then the rest, I think they're pretty much in like sequential order as of release. So we're just going to go through whatever order I have at the bottom here. But we've got Whitebeard and Nami, and these ones just kind of have to be next to each other. I feel like I have to mention these every time, but I think that these are just generically good leaders that they play their own game. I think like day one, they're going to be fantastic because they're optimized for pretty much day one already. Nami, I think, actually is probably on like the cusp of the top end of playable. There's a lot of slower decks right now that Nami can take advantage of by being able to have a leader with a win condition baked into it, and you put your opponent on a clock. So like decks like a Nell that's supposed to be like really slow and control heavy, you can really take advantage of it by giving them this end game that they have to participate in, kind of thing. So Nami might be able to bump up, but I do want to mention it here. I also should have said this a little bit earlier, but any of the leaders that I didn't mention should be in playable or lower. So if I didn't mention them, I don't think they're any higher than playable for this tier list. I could be wrong on that, but that's just the opinion that I have right now as well. So, but I think Nami is in an okay spot. It might jump up to competitive too, but we're going to leave it in playable for right now. And then we have Katakuri, which we could probably put this all the way up in playable, but to be honest, I'm just going to put it in unlikely. He was doing pretty good for like the first half of OP06, especially before EB01 came out. There's just a lot of good things he got from OP06. Yellow got Reject, which ended up getting banned. And just like all the flexible cards, like Kiko Nojo also was a really strong card for the deck too. But I think there's just better yellow decks. I think Enel is just going to take over as like the better deck between the two right now. Maybe I could bump it up to playable. I'll leave it at playable for right now. We'll see if I bump it a little bit lower, but I'll leave it there. It could be good, but I think a lot of people are going to be playing Enel. And I'll just kind of skip and talk about Enel right now. I think he has potential to be the strongest deck in this format. I kind of, had some play testing, played some games around with it, but really when we did our big testing session the other day, he kind of cemented himself as like the best deck in this format. There were just scenarios where like once we got there, I'm like, I can't lose anymore. Like it is impossible for me to lose at this point. I think OP05 Enel had this kind of mentality where I'm winning, and then if I have a good trigger off my life, I win on the spot. I kind of shifted to this mentality in OP06 and EB01 where I'm losing and I can only have a chance of winning if I hit something good off my life. But then again in OP07, Enel shifted back to that previous mindset of like, I'm usually winning and I'm like, it's very easy to be in a favorable matchup. And then if I hit a good trigger off my life, I just win on the spot, right? And that's kind of the mentality change. If you are relying on your life, Enel can't be super good all the time. But if you are already winning despite what may or may not be in your life, that just means that I think he's in a really good spot. So there's just a lot of games I think he's great. He has a lot of defensive properties. The 10-drop Ace secret rare is fantastic for this deck. It's an absurd card in a lot of ways. And you can really starve out a lot of decks that are used to getting hit and getting cards out of their life too, which is only kind of helps your removal potential as well. So I'm going to leave it right there. I think we're going to probably make it the best deck in this format, at least of day one. But we'll see if I change my mind by the end of this video. So next up we have Perona, which I'm going to put probably at the tail end of competitive. I've been playing a lot of like the Wano build with it. I think there's some really neat kind of combos you get with it. The 1-drop Otama 2K that lets you search other green Wano cards is in a really good spot. I think it helps the deck out a lot. And the You Can Be My Samurai builds, the fact that Gecko Moria with You Can Be My Samurai is just a really great card. Though, if we're talking about decks that can do good combos with Gecko Moria, I don't think Perona's at the top of that list, but it's definitely still a deck that can take advantage of that card too. So I think it's in a good spot. I've been having a lot of fun with it. It's probably at the bottom end of competitive or top end of playable, but I'm going to leave it here at the bottom end of competitive right now. And next up we have Yamato, and I'll probably put this at like the other corner. So honestly, like I could maybe even make like a borderline tier between these with the Yamato, the Perona, and the Nami. But Yamato was okay, I think, for the majority of OP06. It was on release or like on announcement of this card, a lot of people thought it would be super good, right? Having double attack on a leader seems cracked, but in implementation, it wasn't super good. I think it's in an okay spot. The fact that Anel is going to be around a lot does hurt the deck as well, because it kind of mitigates the double attack on the leader with its healing effect, and so that's something that hurts the deck a lot. And then sometimes you get like beat up faster by red purple law. I think Rob Lucci's a matchup that them having 5 life is tough as well. So and you lose reject, which some weren't playing, but it was a good card for the deck at times too. So I don't know. I think this deck is in an okay spot. I think there's some Land of Wano stuff you can experiment with, and there's some builds that are good. Like yellow and green is like a really good color combination because there's a lot of different archetypes that work well together with it, and I think there's a lot of potential for the deck too. So I haven't done a lot of testing with it, but I have seen it do well, and I think Yamato is not a terrible choice for this meta either. And then we have Reiju, and I'm just going to put it in this kind of unlikely territory. Or I don't know. It's tough. It's just really tough because of red purple law, to be honest. Maybe I'll bump it up a little bit. We'll put it there. We'll change. We'll see if I change my mind. Outside of Reiju, playing against red purple law, it does have a lot of like okay matchups, I think, right? And the only reason like you don't want to play is because red purple law, which I'm going to guess is going to be around 20 to 25% of the meta, is a very rough matchup, and you can change the deck to make it fit into that matchup a little bit better. But man, then you're losing matchups on the other side too. So it's just got like a real raw deal on the whole thing of red purple law being able to just be a better leader for what this deck is trying to do, and it's just still unfortunate a little bit. But I've seen it top occasionally in Japan. I do think like if you're in the mentality that if you're playing a 5-round event, at least one of them is going to be red purple law, which is a very tough matchup for you. It's going to be hard for you to play Reiju in its entirety. But if you find a way to beat that matchup or make it more playable, I think there's a lot of potential for this deck as well. So we're going to put it at the bottom of playable, but man, I wish it was a little bit more playable for what it is. And then we have Gecko Moria, and I'm going to put it in the middle here of competitive. I think the deck is still really great. Great Eruption is a pretty key card for what this deck is trying to do, though, and losing that does hurt you quite a bit. It means that you kind of can't get rid of like these mid-level cards. Like 3, 4s, and 5 costs are a little bit trickier for you to remove as Moria because of not having access to Great Eruption, which kind of stinks for you. We do have Tempest Kick, which comes out in this set, but that's way better in Rob Lucci because they do fill up their trash pretty quickly. Meanwhile, Gecko Moria, even if you're using your leader effect like every turn and play like Sindri turn 1, like you're barely getting to 10 cards in your trash. So it's a little bit trickier for you to take advantage of that card, but I think there are potentially some builds that can take advantage of it. I just haven't personally been involved in those yet, but I think the deck is good, and it's probably going to be underrepresented despite how good it is, just because I think when faced with the decision, more people would probably be playing Rob Lucci with its power instead of the Moria for what it is. I think Rob Lucci just has a generally better matchup spread for what it is, but that's just my personal opinion. That could be different from yours. And I think people will be playing Gecko, but it will be kind of a weird thing where people are split between playing either Lucci or Gecko, whichever one they prefer a little bit more. So, and I think more people, at least at the beginning, will be preferring Lucci since it's the newer deck. So, I definitely think Moria is going to top in this meta as well, and there will probably be a lot of diehard Moria fans from OP06 that are just going to continue playing the deck. But the loss of Great Eruption does hit this deck pretty hard, and it's something that I think Rob Lucci has an answer to, our replacement to, that Moria doesn't immediately get in this meta. So that's my opinion there, but I do think it's in a good spot. Wrapping it up real quick, I guess we saved two of our better ones for last. I'm going to talk about these two. Red Purple Luffy is neat. I think that's the biggest thing for him. He probably will top once or twice, but I just don't think he's in a good spot for this meta. And generically, he has a really bad matchup into Enel, who's going to be pretty common, I think, just because like if you use your 10-drop Luffy effect, your Enel's life restart mechanic resets as well. So you'd have to they just get, it's just like another like life they get for free, and that's always rough when they get so many cards in their life for free already. And then Uta kind of like drops off the face of the earth based on my own findings. I could be wrong on that, but it didn't really get anything for OP07. And I think if we're looking for a generic green leader, Bonnie's just better in general. I did kind of mention earlier in the video that Uta's not really a green leader when you have to run like 45 like specific film cards. There's not a lot of room for tech options. So and honestly, when Uta was finding success in OP06, it was because it was a deck that could carry and defend a Eustace Kid. And I think Bonnie can just do that way better in this format too, without feeling like you have to like whiff on your like film targets or anything else. I think Bonnie just kind of takes that title away from Uta. So I think it's not a terrible deck, but I think Bonnie just kind of does what it wants to do a little bit better as well. So, and then lastly, we do have our last two decks. We have Trafalgar Law and we have Luffy as well. So I think I kind of mentioned this too. If I was to be asked what I think the 5 best leaders in this format are, I think Enel, Law, Lucci, and Luffy, Black Yellow, are the contenders for the top 4, 100%. And the 5th leader, it's going to be in a tough spot. It could be Moria technically, but I think again, like more people will just be representing Lucci in general. So it's probably Bonnie if we want to do top 5 right here. But I'm not sure. That's probably going to change in the next couple of weeks as well. But I do know that like these 4 up here and these 5s right here, these are honestly like archetypes that you will need to know how to play against. They're going to be very present in this meta, and I think they're going to be very, very strong. But something I think is really neat is that if you look at all these leaders, they all play completely different to each other, right? Some of them are more like gimmicky, or like have their own thing they want to go towards. For example, like Black Yellow Luffy. We have Rob Lucci, which is just a solid like black and removal deck. We have Trafalgar Law, which is like a tempo removal deck as well. We have Enel, which is just a deck that never truly runs out of life. It's just very difficult to close against this deck. It's kind of like a control deck by default, just because of its leader effect and the support it gets from this set. And then we have Bonnie, which is again like more of a control deck as well, but kind of in a different way. So I think like from a diversity set, these are 5 pretty unique leaders for this meta, and I think that's something that we've seen differently, right? Because previously we had like most of the meta for the last little bit was Sakazuki, Moria, and Red Purple Law, which are a lot of play body, remove body kind of thing, and I think these all play pretty differently to that. Like obviously we have Red Purple Law and Black Rob Lucci, but the other decks don't follow that game plan as much. So anyways, that's kind of it. I know a lot of you guys probably skipped to the end here to see what my final thoughts are, so to quickly go through them: highly competitive, these are the leaders I think that are going to be pretty present at least in the first couple weeks. Bonnie's probably like a little half step below at times, but I think it's still good. If I was asked in the top 5 leaders right now, would be these 5, and probably in this order as well. I think Enel's the best deck in the format right now, but we can see if that changes the next couple weeks. Competitive, I do think that, and again, these are leaders that I think will be around as well, but maybe not as represented as the ones above. We do have Moria, which is great, and I think is strong, but losing Great Eruption, and I think being arguably a little bit worse than Rob Lucci, will mean that it won't be seen as much play in this meta. We have either Dofi or Boa. I think these are both pretty similar for card pool and play styles. So I'm going to put them next to each other. And then Perona. For playable, these are leaders that I think could maybe top every once in a while, which includes the Yamato, the Nami, the Dragon, Newgate, Katakuri, and Reiju. Reiju is kind of like our link between these two for sure. So I think these are like moderately layered for this one. And then we have the unlikely, which again, I don't think they're going to do very well in this meta. I could be wrong, but they did do pretty good in the OP06 meta, and I think they're worth a mention. Are they're some of our new OP07 leaders. So other than that, again, like at the beginning, these are untested. I'm probably going to be doing some testing of these in the next couple weeks, but I'm not there quite yet. So this is my tier list going on into it. I know I've been rambling for quite a bit for this one, but I'm really excited. I think there's a lot of unexplored territory, at least compared to a lot of the other metas that we've been given in this card game. There's a lot of different decks and a lot of different play styles, and I think that's just really exciting for where we're at, especially since it's been such a big shift from where we were in OP05 and OP06. It's just like a lot of new decks and cards and combos, which I think is really exciting. So that's going to be it for me. Let me know what you guys think on this tier list. If I'm off base, if I'm right, if I'm wrong, if there's something I got completely wrong, let me know. Or if I didn't put your favorite leader on this list, let me know where you think it belongs. And that's going to be it for this one. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Good luck at your pre-releases, and I'll catch you all next time.